Welcome to this episode of Clinically Pressed. On this episode, we have our Reiki Part II with Shannon Amberg, PhD and Reiki Master. We get into the depths more of what Reiki is, intuition, some of the things that we just didn't have time to quite get to in session 1 with Shannon. So we're really excited to get this one out. Since this time and getting these out, I've gone through a couple Reiki sessions myself. It's very interesting. The intuition part really does play a factor and a role, as she really can kind of dig into some things that you might be feeling. From there, we talk about videoing those sessions, where we're still working on the editing on that, so those will be out hopefully sometime in the near future. But it is really, really interesting to get into the depths of what Reiki is and what it can do for you, so we highly recommend checking that out. Remember, we are doing a mobility kit giveaway. We'll try and get another post out later this week or over the weekend of what that all entails. But it's a mobility kit with foam roller, stretching band, a couple mini bands to do some rehab, a couple balls and things like that. All you need to do is go to your iTunes or your podcast app for Apple Podcast, leave us a rating. Also, leave us a review. We'll read the review and shout you out. This winner is Nick Run, is what the name is on it. So if you can shoot us an email at info@clinicallypress.com and confirm on that, we will get the contact information from you and ship you out your free mobility kit. We truly appreciate it. Everybody keeps telling us that reviews are what does it for us. If you've heard any other podcasts, they always ask for it, so we figured we might as well do the same. But with that, please enjoy this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Yeah, but I've had it for 8 years now.
Oh, but
So it's not.
people come with baggage too.
Yeah. And so I don't know. Dude, he's moved up and down I-35 more than probably is healthy for an animal. But do right by him. All right, everybody can hear.
Yep.
I'm gonna scoop.
You good?
Not so that we're like talking at you, but just so I'm not touched with my cord.
Sure.
Oh, I got you.
Can you move that way? That might help. Oh, but here.
Yeah, we only got so much distance.
It's all good.
We gotta find the 12-foot version.
Say otherwise I can look in that corner too.
All right, well, I'll let you bring this one in.
Sounds good. So we are back with Shannon Amber, following up from episode 1, and we had a great discussion, introduction to Reiki, and covered some of the main topics, I would think, and there was a lot of topics that we could have dove into and probably been on an all-day episode, but we saved some of them. And we're back here for more to dive into the weeds a little bit more and learn some more in depth. And also at the end, we're going to kind of get a little bit of a preview of what's to come, because we have some other plans to follow up with Shannon and Joel and myself. So welcome back, Shannon.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be back.
Good to have you.
Jump right in.
Jump right in. We'll get right into it. So I guess just following up from before. So one of the things that I was curious about is throughout your journey through here, you just mentioned that you don't know everything. You know, you're still learning, and I think that's just a continuous process for everybody. But have you become comfortable with, understood, and worked with your intuition and then ruined your psychic abilities, because I think that's something that is a little bit more unique to bring to the table. And like you just mentioned, how you practice Reiki maybe isn't how somebody else practices Reiki.
Yeah, so there's a lot of layers to the question there.
Yeah.
So I'll try to break it into pieces, and hopefully it'll be clear. I've always been intuitive since I was a small child. I didn't always know that that's what it was, and it wasn't something that was actively encouraged in my family. In fact, I was raised in a very devout Catholic family, and so there's a whole lot of discussion about what a seer is and is not, and how that may be not acceptable in terms of faith. So it was not something that was encouraged for me to pursue or to develop, or definitely not nurtured in a way that I'm to do for my own children, because they're very sensitive to. So it kind of turned off in me for a long time. I remembered being very intuitive from a child, and then it's kind of like disappeared for a little while. And it happens when you don't practice it, and if you don't have anybody encouraging you, because it's like a muscle. And you guys know about functional training, working with your body. Your intuition is something that you're born with. We all have it, but if you don't work with it and exercise it and practice with it, it goes to sleep on you. Some people are born wide open, and they'll always be that way, but most have to work with it. You hone our abilities and to really become familiar with what it means to get intuitive inside, as opposed to your brain make things up. So that was probably the hardest thing for me to work through as my intuition started to blossom again. I'd always been somebody that people would seek out to talk to me, and at first I found it really annoying, right? I mean, just being honest, right? Because people
Got enough stuff to
Yeah,
deal
leave me
with,
alone.
right? Yeah.
I mean, I love people, and I love being able to help people, and I'm very empathic, right? So I feel and identify with other people's feelings, especially if they're having a time. And a lot of people are like that. They feel the feelings of others around them, and want to help them feel better. But I like, people would just come find me and just want to sit me and tell me their story, and I wouldn't have to say anything, right? Like, not even like, what can I help you with, right? It would just be like they'd sit down, and it was like therapy sessions. And but for the longest time, I thought like, wait, am I supposed to, like, is this what I do? Like, am I supposed to study this, or why do people feel comfortable? And I would always have an answer for them, and not really necessarily sure where it would come from. At the time, I didn't know, but now I understand why people are drawn to me, because I have the natural ability to be a healer. And through listening and reflecting to them what they need to understand about themselves energetically, I was doing that intuitively and didn't realize it. So I was in my mid-20s, and I had some experiences where that were not necessarily really traumatic, but heavy, like a lot of emotion, a couple of deaths in the family. And I can't remember if we talked about this before in the last episode. We're going into it again. Those were kind of a shock to my system, and I was in graduate school anyway, working on my doctorate, so that was very stressful as well. And what happened is I start seeing like shadows out of the corner of my eyes, and feeling people around, and then a few times I had apparitions appear in front of me. Right? Wow. And it scared me. I didn't know what was happening, and but really what it was just an opening of the sensitivity to the spirit world, and being able to see beyond the veil. And so it didn't happen for me all the time, but did at the times that really freaked me out. So I needed to learn more about it. And once I got a couple of mentors at that time to help me figure out what was happening. How do I work with it so I wouldn't be afraid of that sensitivity? And once I started to practice, like I would practice through tuning in through meditation, and just asking to be shown what needs to be seen, and how does this apply to me. So it was really like an active process of exploring what these abilities are. And pretty soon after that, I could see things happen before they would happen. And at key times, like seeing things like preventing an accident before it would happen, and or anticipating someone's words, or knowing someone was going to arrive at the doorstep that they did. So like those types of things started happening, where you just you feel the energy of something happening before it actually is, which is really beneficial.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm very, very serious about working with my intuition then, because I was curious, right? What the capacity for me to be able to hone my skills, and if we all have this, then theoretically we should work with it regularly and become proficient at it. And it's a useful way to move through life too. Like you can get a lot of information about your situation, about the people you're in relationship with, and understand them at a deeper level. Especially what's good for you and not good for you, right? And energies being exchanged. So just practiced a lot. I have several mentors over those 10, 12 years, and all working on different skills. And eventually it just became a very daily part of my life. Like now I would tell you I live my life by intuition probably 90% of the time. Checking in with my body and intuition first about decisions that I make or how I need to move through the day. And then I let my brain, jump in and be logical and analytical. So, and I can't tell you how much more in flow my life is when I do that, because it's being led. The energy wants to lead us where we need to be. So there's a little bit of faith there, right? Like spirituality in the process. It's also very, it's very physics in that way too, right? Like it is not created or destroyed, it's just transformed, and everything energy, right? So if we think about our thoughts and our behavior, our feelings, and our bodies, it's just energy. It makes sense that we follow the flow of that and be led where we need to be taken to. Does that make sense? Kind of.
No, it does. I was an example of like what you said, like your intuition throughout your day, because obviously in a hyper-connected go world, like for most people with a schedule that's set, the thing just doesn't happen. So do you have like an example of like even like a compare and contrast to like how it used to be to like how it is, and like how you utilize that? I don't know, that's the best way to say it.
Yes, it is. So like maybe 5 years ago, I would probably take the same way home every day from work. And now each time I get in my car, I ask my body, or I ask, my intuition, which way do I need to turn at the light today? And I follow the intuition. If it says you need to go right today, take a right. And if it says you need to go straight, I go straight, right? So I just question it anymore. There have been times when I have questioned it and not followed my intuition, and I found out very quickly why. So like flat tire, or almost hit a deer, or those types. So like the driving example,
right?
Or I got held up for like 15 minutes. Right?
So you avoid Highway 10 at all costs south of Alaska.
No, sometimes I actually follow Highway 10,
right, no.
But I do, like at that stoplight, I do ask, okay, which way do I have to turn today? Do I go straight or do I turn right? And I try to listen to that, like I touch my body and my intuition first, rather than just following a pattern. And I do everything that way now. Yeah. In that's something that is a practice. Like we're creatures of habit, right? So we operate really well in our patterns and our heuristics that we put in place to help us make decisions, because otherwise we'd be like thinking about too many things and get anything done, because we'd be like actively making decisions all day long.
Right.
But for me, I've replaced a lot of that with okay, what does my intuition tell me I need to do right now? And it's like rapid. Like when I know that, I just tune in, I'm like, okay, this is what I have to do. And it's the same with healing too. Very rarely do I stand over someone's body as they're laying on my table, and very rarely do I think, okay, what do I have to do first? It's right away I'm told, intuition will tell me, oh, you have to start here first, or you have to do this first, or you have to prepare the body this way first, and it's all for a reason. because things have to happen in a certain sequence, and everybody's different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not, it's no longer a situation of, using my brain side, what happens first and in what way. It's, I'm led through the process. And really, that's what psychic ability and intuition really is. It's like you're allowing information to come in, and you look at it from an observer standpoint, and you decide what that means for you. So as opposed to like being in your head about it, right, and trying to analyze everything, it's a very different process, and you feel it through the heart and the solar plexus. So heart space is right there in the middle of the chest, and solar plexus is right at the diaphragm, and you feel your intuition there, and you see visually through the forehead, but rather than logically, you feel it in the body. I know, that was just a ton of stuff. So over the years, I just really learned to like feel through life as opposed to through life. I doesn't abandon any logical or analytical thinking, because I am trained as a scientist, and it's very helpful in the work that I do, because I think about the connections that are made between energy and body conditions, and how people are integrating their own emotional awareness with their physical condition. So, plus I've been able to learn how to talk to people in a way that they can understand. So, it's just been a process of learning how to feel all of that and be open to what comes in and trusting it, and then as opposed to like really being in my head about what's happening.
Mm-hmm. I could see the benefit of going more in that direction. And for individuals, I just heard a statistic, and I don't know they calculated it, but it was like a person makes an average of over 30,000 decisions a day, and a lot of that maybe just like just decisions, like meaningless stuff. I could see that the taxing effect that would have on like the
would never get
the logical
anywhere.
mind.
Yeah, so that's part of what I studied for my doctorate is heuristic rules of thumb that we put in place consciously and consciously, so that we can actually make it through our day without having to consciously make 30 decisions. Because you'd never leave your house. Yeah. You would never leave your house.
You hear it a lot with the high performers. Like Zuckerberg is always one like, where's the same thing every day?
Yeah, it's easy.
It's just one thing about it. Yep. There's no.
All
you don't need
patterns.
to pick out.
Like how you.
This shirt matches this shirt.
Yep.
So what I get to wear all just WL stuff all the time. Then I don't have to think about it.
Like we're wearing Wisconsin Badgers red shorts. And
well, that's also so easy to forget to do something because you get into a habit. Like, habits are a little bit different, but like the heuristic decisions, rules of thumb that you have, they're for everything too. It's choice of food, which direction you drive, right? It's what you put on. The order that you do things in the day, and it's very easy to forget something. It's out of order, right? Because you're not thinking about it. It's like muscle memory, and muscle memory for your brain. So, and intuition's a little bit different, and it's getting you to focus on how everything feels. It's not such a cognitive process. It's a very feeling-oriented process. And for some people, it's very visual and vivid in the clairvoyant way, which, that involves the brain, but it's also allowing information to come in and you get to see it as opposed to make it up in your mind. It's a hard distinction. It's hard to describe it to somebody because it happens differently for all of us, but it's a really amazing. Oh man, I'm so I would not go back to being asleep if you paid me $5 million. It's just an incredible way to live life.
Do you could even at this point?
No, I don't think I could turn it off, right? And so it's one of those things like once you know, you want to unknow it, right? Once you know how it can work and how you can be guided, and it's like you get to tap into this. Well, we were talking about this a few days ago. You tap into this field of information that exists, and we all have access to it. But it's whether or not you believe you can get up there and then mine it for whatever it has for you. So it's full potential and guidance, and it's incredibly accurate. So that is the field of potential, all potentials, right? So anything that's possible for you, what you have access to. I know, this stuff's amazing, right? So that was like really getting off into the weeds. So intuitive abilities, psychic abilities. It's as I practiced more, it just became more accurate. But my biggest hurdle, um, like knowing this stuff was happening for me, but then thinking, oh, that's not really happening, right? I'm making it up in my head. So really trusting what you get about someone, reading their energy. The hardest thing is trusting what you get. And so you have to be really vulnerable in that process because you have to ask, this is what I'm seeing in you. Does that make sense to you? And of course you don't want to be wrong, right? Because then you're like, people think you're crazy or whatever. But the more that you open to it, the more accurate it becomes because you're not creating any obstacles for you to receive that information, and you're not as much in your head, so you won't like filter the information, overthink it, and change it, or because sometimes spirit will speak in metaphors and stories or examples of other people, and you have to like let that in and understand. Okay, what is that saying to me? And you just have to verbalize it. And someone will say, you'd say, well, I'm getting a picture of a dog running the field, and blah 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 blah. And be like, oh, that makes total sense. I used to do that when I was a kid, and I had this fondest memory of that, right? So spirit will show you those things, and then you have to just like, I don't know what I'm getting, but this is what you need to know, and it could make total sense to the person you're working on.
So I think that's appealing to probably a lot of people, to the untapped potential that you said. Everybody has access to it.
Everybody.
So, and I'm sure that it's maybe more on an individual person's level. What one person does maybe is not what the next person has to do. But do you have general recommendations for
how to do
tapping into that?
Yeah, there's so many resources, and I think the stigma around psychic abilities, air quotes, that's right, is becoming
the one down Road or whatever.
Rose Street.
The psychic readings by Gene.
Oh,
whatever.
Yeah.
$10 per.
Well, you might have to edit this part out. Yeah, well, so like in terms of resources that I'm thinking about, like there's a lot of people who are very, very good intuitive, psychic, write books about how you can do this yourself, how you start to practice. And in fact, one of the mentors that I had for a long time, she's a really well-known author who one of her skills is writing a book, like distilling this down to practice that anybody can do. And anyone be successful doing it, right? So there's a ton of book resources on how to, start to work on intuition, how to do things like getting channeled guidance through writing, where like essentially your soul writes through you on paper, and you watch it happen. I know it sounds totally wild, but it's really cool when it happens. Or just to really open up to allow that information to come in. So that, I can create a list of books too, but. That can be available to anybody listening, but it's there, and there are people that do a lot of mentoring too. It was easy for me to find mentors, and it's really about growth, right? This is about you expanding your soul, be able to listen to guided from yourself. Like if you think about us as being many layers, the human form is just one layer, right? One level of us, but there's like a multitude of layers above us that go way up high to the realms. Are we getting too far? Esoteric, right? So you get to listen to those aspects of yourself. It's all about how you get to grow as a soul when you're in a human body. And really, because the human body is the only thing that expires, the soul doesn't. That energy does not. Oh, are we segueing?
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Did you try that?
I'm just, honestly, before we started, I just asked for the right words to come to me. So this is how we're doing it.
So that just right into the next rabbit hole, I guess. We kind of didn't want to dive in last time, but you get talking about the soul and the human experience of that. Like, could you dive into like our bare existence as soul and your understanding of how that works?
Yeah. So I mean, first of all, it's like this is Shannon is Shannon in this iteration as a soul living a human experience, and what I've been able to understand in my limited, my limited form right now. First, I need to mention like the book Journey of Souls by Michael Newton. It was a game changer for me. It's nice to really develop my intuition or backup, and he's a clinical I think he's a clinical psychiatrist who specializes in regression therapy for trauma release and phobia release and things that could not be explained medically, but were still happening for people. And so he perfected the technique for regressing people through their life, their timeline, to look at different parts of their experience to see where trauma may have been embedded that would create emotional challenges. What happened for him, though, is his client started to go beyond the time of birth into like beyond conception, into the space. Yeah, look at your face. Into this space called the life between lives. And all of his clients described this place in this way. So, and he has done hundreds of case studies. Yeah, so now he trains people on how to use this method for healing at the soul level. So if everything's energy and you experience things as a soul, and we're assuming that we live multiple lives as multiple people or millennia, right? So people may have a problem with reincarnation. But in terms of my belief system, what I've experienced myself, and remembering who I've been, totally blows your mind. And then just working on clients, seeing what they've experienced and the energy they carry with them currently. This book describes how, as a soul, you go through this process of going home each time after death to review what you've been through and then to plan the next iteration, including you go through some deep healing and you reunite with your family. So this that we do on Earth is school, right? So we come and learn lessons. And this, I understand it. Again, this book was a game changer because I was always searching for answers. I was that little girl sitting in church, when, 5 years old, listening, saying they're not telling us the whole story. And then when I read this book, it was like, oh, that's it. That makes sense, right? There's so much more to it. There's some more of our experience, and it's iteration after iteration because we set ourselves up to specific lessons and to grow. Like the impetus is to grow as a soul, to become as advanced as we need to, where we don't have to keep going back to school. That's what we're working toward. So we can be doing this, well, most of us have done this hundreds of times, right? Hundreds of times, but those people that have been doing it for a long time, they get to a certain level. They don't have to come back if they don't want to. But when they choose to come back, it's usually because they're going to be a catalyst for other people's growth. More of like a catalyst, big scale catalyst, where they're really doing it to help other people at that point, as opposed to grow their own soul. That was a lot right there too. Oh my God. So yes, Journey of Souls is a good place to start, and he has like 4 books where he just hundreds of case studies, and it's just fascinating. And he's a scientist by training too. When this started happening for him, it was like, what is going on? And then when different clients were giving him pieces of the bigger whole, he was actually able to picture of what space between lives looks like. I've had one of the regression therapies on before, 2 of them, and it's astounding. Yes.
Makes you wonder who you were before, huh?
Oh, I could tell you stories. Oh my God, I just got back from a trip to Arizona, and I had my most palpable experience of who I was, 500 years ago. And I know, oh my God, this sounds so nutty, but I knew it to be true because I could feel it. And I remembered things after that happened, right? So, and when we get to remember those experiences that we have, because remember, it's imprinted in our soul energy, like we get to pull that knowledge and wisdom into our consciousness in this life. So it's like exponential growth, right? And then we can release that energy from that experience if it's traumatic. As soon as we recognize it, we see it for what it is, and we're able to let it go. So sometimes people carry on from past lives that's traumatic, and that issues for them. In fact, I just worked on a woman who has had a chronic nerve issue in her leg where she feels like it's always burning. And I hadn't been able to figure it out for a long time, but like this last session I had on her, we had back enough layers of stuff where I started working on her, and I got a very, very vivid image of her in period dress and she was in a fire, and her dress caught on fire and burned her leg, and there were some other things that had happened in that life, but she since had 3 other people verify that same story. They don't know me.
Dang.
Yeah, and like within 4 days, 3 other people had said the same thing to her. So I think we got down to what happened to her in that experience, and hopefully she's able to release that trauma, because there were some really like consequential things that happened. She had a lot of loss in that she couldn't save some people she needed to save, and so that was like she was wearing that as like a reminder of karma, right? And I don't know if karma is the best word for that, but so we're hoping that nerve pain will start to dissipate now that she's very aware of what happened, and she can do some releasing work around forgiving herself in that time. I know.
Be really interested to hear.
I know. I'm so like, I can't wait to see her next time. But did that? I guess does that answer the question? Is the existence of souls? We do this over and over again, and there are times that we can remember what we've done and been. And sometimes it's just a split second, but I've been in sessions where I've had work done on me, and I'll remember 3 or 4 of them at that time, and it'll just be little wisps, but I'll see it very clearly, and it'll go. And there will be an emotional release after that. So, again, being open to it. Sometimes we dream about these. We dream about who we used to be. Those are the ones that are vivid.
I don't know that I can recall any of those. No, that was interesting because I even remember growing up, like thinking of because I'm not religious in and of the fact that like I was like raised up in Lutheran church and did the whole thing and did all that. Never really give a like extra thought about it. Like I don't go to church now. Like I don't mind. I'm like one of those that maybe goes to once a year. And if I have to go to my brother, I miss that service, the church one. So doing well in that.
Your honesty is just so appreciated.
Yeah, well. But again, it's not I actively think about, but I still remember as like a kid wondering, like, so when you die, is that just it?
Oh,
is it just black? Is it done? Like, but even though I was like, well, if it's like that, how would you know? Like you're there, like.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, what if you do know and you just lay there and it's just dark, and that would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But those were the thoughts I had, and like, you know, not that I. Again, I haven't given this too much thought or done a lot of deep reading on it, but it was just I was like, okay, so if you do go on and you know the whole process of like going to heaven and whatnot, just a version of what you're talking about in somebody's interpretation of that. So this was really interesting to hear, and God, I'd be really interested. But
yeah, you should check out that book.
I actually think that'll get added to the list.
I think you'll appreciate how he writes it, because he's very clinical about how he goes about his research. And I was doing my doctorate at the time that I was reading it, so I needed something like that.
Right.
And now, of course, I'm very open intuitively, and so I'm able to tell with discernment what feels good and true, and right. Right, I don't really like, but like what feels good in terms of truth about the bigger existence. When I was doing out, that was really helpful to have that. There's another called Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. Same deal, skeptic, clinical psychiatrist. Had one client who, she was a case, man. She had all these phobias and crazy things that were happening to her that were unexplained, and he was kind of her last-ditch effort to fix herself. And he started doing regression therapy on her, and what he started doing was she started going to life after life after life, different existences, and each time she did that, she used a phobia. Yeah, so they were healing her by having her like relive those experiences, and she was able to release that energy, like resolution about it. It's really interesting. Like, if we think about what energy is, you can't destroy it, right? It's got to go somewhere. And if we're a soul, which is just a collection of particles of energy, that stuff comes with us. All of that is imprinted into our soul DNA, and then we carry it into the body that we have. It's so wild.
I want to read that quantum physics book that Kevin Schultz recommended.
Ooh, what is it?
I'd have to go back and look it up, and then I could. I don't know. He's not very out there, but he's a conditioning coach by training. But he's always curious about stuff, and he recommended it. Once upon a time, he said it was just baffling, but
like
really interesting.
Top
but also like very easy to read. Like it wasn't so dense that you couldn't get into it.
Well, I just showed you the truth of the pen. Your eyes were like dinner plates when you watched that. So.
Now, the whole phobias thing's got me, and this would be completely out of the ballpark, and coming with that like Tony Robbins, familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Just like his whole neuro-linguistic programming and being based off of that, like how does that come in with anything? And I know it's not necessarily this in any way, but I just, in terms of phobias or even like personalities, I've heard him talk about like getting down to the core of somebody in that art and almost, I don't know the best word for it, like breaking or
dismantle
that.
You
That's
just
a good
dismantle it. That's why when I'm doing energy work on somebody, again, what I happen to be able to hone in on is the root of the condition, and it's always emotional. So when I first started doing the work, I was like, gosh, I only see the emotions that are in the body. Like, why can't I like medically, intuitively see the condition? And now it makes perfect sense to me because I don't need to see the physical condition and that somebody is experiencing. I only need to see the emotion, and it'll make a lot more sense as you start to dismantle or unlock what's there. And as soon as somebody becomes aware of, oh, you have anger or resentment stuck in your heart, that's really like eating away at physical heart and calcifying it, right? We'll talk about what it is you're so angry about and you release it. For me, like I finally realized I don't need to see everything that's going on in the body because the root is the most important. And if I can help them dismantle the stuck energy of the heavier emotion that's there, then we're attacking it where it needs to be, right? Not attacking is not a great word, but we're addressing it. And then you can dissipate the problem without it having to come back, provided the client does the homework they need to do, right? There's a lot of energy work that they do on their own by addressing the patterns that they have and actually asking the questions to do the healing. Again, just to reiterate, I don't do the work for I just get their body to sort of help energy move in it. It gets more prepared to do the work themselves. So I bring their body to a state where they're receptive to the work, they're less afraid to do the work, they're more ready to do the work, they're less stressed. And so it gives them courage in a lot of ways. And it gets energy moving so it's easier to just what needs to go. Otherwise, you don't look at the emotion of it. You look at the root of it. It's like putting a band-aid bullet hole, right? It won't work. You gotta take the bullet out, right, and stitch it up. So, that's the easy way for me to describe how it happens. But again, get back to your point. You have to dismantle what's there so you can rebuild from the ground up in a healthier way.
Makes sense.
Yeah, totally rad. I have such a cool to you guys.
No arguments there.
That is cool.
Oh, so yes, many masters and new skills are key. Game changers for me, but it made sense. It was like I was remembering what it was like to do this over and over again. It triggered something in you, so it may trigger something in people who are listening, or at least makes sense in some way.
So, with the like you talked about with the energy and just like that little dead space, or not the dead space, but that period, kind of like between your live
transition period,
the transition period, right? And then it sounds like it's like a person and then a person and a person. So what happens
between?
But not only between, but like for a giraffe or a cat or a dog.
All the animals,
yeah.
giraffe.
Or like a tree or even like plant material, because you have energy there as well.
That's a great question. And so this is something that I haven't done like a whole lot of reading and familiarizing myself with, but everything does have energy. My understanding is you have different levels of consciousness, right? So, like I don't know there's terminology for this, and it's definitely not something I'm super familiar with because I focus on the person.
Mm-hmm.
But how like the energy of a tree, and the energy of a rock, and inanimate objects, also living things that are not at the same consciousness level as a human soul is, their process is different, right? They're imbued with energy because, well, one, something is living, but also like things that are inanimate are made out of energy too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a different type of existence. It's a different type of journey. It's not so much journey as it is like it's being, right? It's made out of energy, and those are things that's created and transformed, right? Souls, it's a little more complex, right? It's about oh boy, we're gonna get really into it. So human souls, or souls in general, they're aspects of the one source of all, right? So this is getting to the spirituality of it. Again, this isn't religion, it's just spirituality. And people have a lot of different interpretations of what this is, but the thing that is most commonly said is we're all from the same source. We're just fragments of source that are different expressions because source wants to learn about it itself, and source wants to grow, right? So we're set about the universe on this journey to grow through different iterations, grow as individual souls, but we're constantly on the move to get back to source, which is the point where we don't need to keep incarnating anymore. We make that choice. We've gotten to the level of enlightenment and going back to source. So animals are kind of this, like they're like this in between, right? They have consciousness. Like people can communicate with animals, and I'm not super great at it, but I definitely pick up on like the impact feelings of animals. But they're not at the same consciousness level as human souls are, or like higher energy, things like that. But they are conscious, and their path is a little bit different. And I have a great way to articulate, but I understand it as they come as like helpers, right? As teachers too, and then as like they have their own thing going on as energy that exists and things that are created to. As worlds evolve, right? So like things are set in motion on Earth, and Earth has species have evolved on Earth to become lots of different things. It's like their own thing going on, their own journey, but it's not necessarily to achieve enlightenment as part of source, right? Aspects of source, but it's not necessarily soul growth as much as it is as part of creation. That's how I understand it.
Got it.
And a lot of times, like animals, like horses and animals that are friends to us. Even wild animal energy is different than domesticated energy. It's very clear that domesticated animal energy, they're like companions, right? And there's these soul connections that happen. And wild animals, from my perspective, is like they're just doing their thing. It's like they've got their stuff to do. It's part of how life works to create this landscape of what we experience. So different journey, different level of consciousness. Mm-hmm. I know I need to do more reading on that. I can only fit so much into my life.
Right. Yeah.
It's something
totally
that is very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just got back from Arizona, and man, the rocks just glow there. Right? Like I can see the aura of a lot of things when I was there. Everything had an aura, and the rocks glow. That doesn't necessarily mean the rocks have consciousness at the level we do. They're made of energy, and you can see that energy emanating, which is totally rad. I gotta show you some pictures.
Yeah.
I took the capture images, so it's really, really neat. I should show you those pictures.
Well,
I capture my own aura, which is amazing. So it's just a different configuration. Like we're on a journey to learn and grow and go back to source. Other things, inanimate object, and animals have a different thing going on.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, I read a book called the name is kind of funny. It's called A Brief History of Everything.
Oh,
I've heard of that.
Is that Bill Bryson?
I think it's Ken Wilber.
Ken Wilber. Okay.
It was super, super dense. It was such a slow read, but it was good. It just you had to pull your way through it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you had to let it sink in, but it really helped explain things well.
Cool.
For me, and it sounded to be similar to what you were kind of discussing. One of kind of how he describes as like a transcend include. So as like you go through these levels, like you transcend that level, but you kind of include everything you have to that point. And like you just kind of keep
Yeah,
going.
our pathways are different. Like we're as souls, we're meant to go from not just we're at 3D right now, in our bodies. We're meant to go on that 40, 5D, 60, 70D. We know that there are multiple dimensions because quantum physics is established already. Our path is to go that direction, and that's not the path for everything. Like some things are just meant to just be involved. It's kind of an experiment. How can life flourish in the universe? And we know it's statistically improbable and probably impossible that we are not alone, right? So we imagine there are a lot of worlds out there that have different experiments going on how life is evolving. So it's just a pathway, and we, as souls, we're on a journey to see how far we can get. And we'll get there. We'll get there. Whether we remember that in each life is a question. But inevitably we'll get there, because that's our purpose. To go back to source. It's so fun to think about that stuff.
I agree. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, so we could really talk about the truth of our existence as souls for like hours and hours, but like I would just tell people to start with a couple of digestible books, and probably not something too fluffy, like the two examples I gave are really good, because they're people who try clinical research in a very responsible case study way, and so that adds some definite legitimacy to the process. And there's just things that are undeniable, right? Undeniable, and it's easy for me to say that now because this is the life I live, and so I just like to help people understand that when they're open to it. But yeah, there's a lot to discover.
For sure, for sure. Do you have any other questions at all, or
nothing burning that I'm as we move forward with more interaction?
Right.
Did we? I see on the sheet here it says, what's it like to do energy work on somebody, like reading a book of life? I can't remember. Did we address that last time?
Oh yeah.
I think we talked about it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that like?
This could be a good transition into what it is as time flies for everybody.
Yeah. So it's fascinating. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you going to ask another question? Yeah. Everyone's different. To start a session, the way I'm always asking and shown what needs to be seen for that person's healing for that. And remember, I say that healing happens in layers, and what needs to come up first is what's seen first, and we discover what's down deeper. And every person is different, how much they need or don't need. And then, so then what's like, it's just so wild. I can just stand next to somebody, and as soon as I can get my hands over them, I can feel the texture of their energy, and have temperature, sometimes I see the color, but not always, actually pretty rarely. Feel the texture of it, I feel the heat of it, it'll like be buzzy or jagged or smooth, and a lot of times I see light moving through my body, and I can see where it gets stuck. And then I look at those places where the energy cooled up, and it'll cold or hot depending on what's happening there. And I'll ask what's happening, and that's when I'll get the feeling, or I'll get a movie clip like played in my mind, like it's like watching a movie of their life. Or sometimes it's just like open book and paging through, like, okay, what's happening here? And so I'll be shown those things in different ways, and of course this is up to figure out, like, okay, how do I interpret that? Or most of the time I just say, this is what I'm seeing, and then it comes out with the client, like, oh, that makes sense to what this is representing. And so it's crazy, because I'll see it, and I just go with, I trust what I see, and then I will say, how do you know this? You don't know this about me. And all I can say is that your body is telling me. Like, I have a way of looking at what's in your body and reading like it's a book, and it tells me what it is to be said and heard, so that you have the opportunity to heal so you can feel better. So I don't know, it's just wild. I mean, it just comes knowing, it comes as a feeling, and it comes as like images and examples. Like I'll see it in my life, and I'll know immediately, like, oh, is this thing? Like, I'm seeing this from my life. Is this happening to you? And then they'll be like, yes, it is, almost exactly. So Spirit uses lots of different ways to communicate to you. And when someone's energy isn't open, running, sometimes I'll see the wisp, like a block, come undone, and I'll wipe the energy just wisp out. And they'll feel it when it happens, and which is really pretty cool when they can feel it. And when their energy is run away at need to, it's like rivers of light just crisscrossing through the body. And I don't always see it with my physical eyes, although it's happening more and more that I get to see it with my physical eyes. Mostly it's like an image that comes in my mind. And when I see it flowing all the way down through the up through the head, that's when I know we've done our work. Until I can see it, I go back to the places that need the addressing. So it's really cool. I wish people could like mind meld with me, right? And be able to like see it. Because it's just really fascinating. It makes life so magical, right? Like to be able to see that and be tuned into it. There's so much more that we have access to about how things work for us, and we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg. Really, is that the correct metaphor? I don't know. Scratching the surface, I guess.
Yeah.
The tip of the iceberg.
You got to start somewhere. Yeah, you scratch it before the tip.
Yeah, so it's really cool. It just like more things come online for me, and really what I do is that if something new comes up, I'll usually ask, you want me to do what? And then I know it's like an internal dialogue that I have. If it's something new that I haven't been asked to do before. But it's like I go to school every day to work on someone.
So that's a great segue into what we got coming here. Joel, do you want to dive in a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously if you're listening to this one, we've ready you check out the first one to get the whole theory of it. Again, it's not being someone myself that's overly spiritual and has a heavy dose of skepticism with a lot of things. We decided that we would want to turn this into a little mini-series and trying to go through and experiment with it and just get a feeling for it, because for me, I've never done anything close to this. Like, I don't, as much as I hear you should meditate, I have not tried it.
It's really good for you.
Yeah, I keep getting go back to Eric and the thing with the birds and that whole bit, but the whole point of this is to kind of introduce it, and then also for people who I know as soon as this comes out, sit there and be like, well, I know how he is. Like, if I get something out of it, then I feel like there will be other people like, well, maybe it's something worth checking into. Just because how people know me. But I'm really curious about like you were saying, where you like this image, or you watch a movie or a book, like to really know, like to see like what you're that, because again, how does the skepticism here with a lot of things. You get people that do cold reading and whatnot, and you can pick out just enough off of people as they start giving things. It's a skill and a technique, and I'm not saying what you do is that at all. I'm just curious, to hear the detail you get. That's going to be fascinating for me, and something I'm really looking forward to. And just
you're making me nervous.
See, I mean, it is. It's a major curiosity, and so we're looking to get that started in sequence. Coming up here after the episode is really, but doing a couple different sessions with myself and Kyle going in for the spiritual tune-up, as you like to
Reiki,
refer to it.
Yeah, Reiki. He hasn't had any Reiki for. It's been.
I probably need more tune-up too. But so yeah, it'll be
just like a boost. It's been a few months since I've seen you on my table. But, you can't have too much of it. It's only good stuff, and it will only make you feel better, more relaxed and calm. So. It's definitely something that's been beneficial, and this will be exciting.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so what we can expect is a lot of insight from myself and just what I've experienced and to go through it, and then also from Shannon trying to really dive into what she's seeing from me, which I'll give her full green light to do that. We'll hold the caveat of what happens in the room may or may not stay in the room depending on what comes out. So we'll put that with a big asterisk.
Depends on what you have in your body, right?
it's also just petrifying to think what it could potentially be. I won't lie. It is.
Oh, it's not scary. It's its own.
In a good way, it is. It just possibly could come out of that, which again is a curiosity thing and really something that I would look forward to in it. But also, it's just like holy hell, like
Well,
what's gonna happen here?
That raises a really good question though too, because people get really nervous or scared the first time they see me because they think I'm going to tell them something that's, quote unquote quote bad or scary, and 98% of the time I don't tell them anything they don't already know about themselves.
And I think that's the part that I'm sitting there and like, oh shit, like what's gonna happen? Or, like, does it confirm it? And
well, that's the thing.
yeah,
like,
it's a good thing.
When you do this healing, it works at the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. So it's what your soul wants to show you about your own growth and what you get to risk and let go of, so you can grow. And so you have to just there's a certain willingness to be able to face your shadows, right? Like what do you have, what you tucked away, and you're willing to and sometimes it's something we're not totally conscious, but we have the niggling that it's there, tucked away for a really long time. And when we do that, it's there. It won't go away because we avoid it when we decide we're not going to look at it. It stays there until we're ready for it. But each person comes to that readiness at their own time, and then you can make a choice based about ready to heal it. So I hardly tell people. I mean, sometimes I'll tell people like, "You're gonna have a baby," and they're like, "What?" Like I get that kind of, I get those kind of reads on people, and so that can be surprising sometimes for people. But most of the time, it's like I'll tell them something about themselves, and they like you can see the recognition on their face, like they know. And so that's even more powerful because that shows them they already know that about themselves.
Right.
And for me, as a total stranger, to say you have that going on. That's a reality check, right? Like okay, it's time for me to check that. It's time for me to look at it, and it's time to actually heal so I can grow. So it's really powerful experience that way. I hardly ever tell people something they don't know about themselves on some level.
Right.
But I do try to offer a perspective that makes the work less scary or daunting for them, right? It's a really empowering experience, which is helpful for any healing journey.
Sweet.
I can't wait to work on you.
No, it'd be good. It should be really, really interesting.
Man, if I blew you in with that pendulum trick, you're in for it.
We'll see how it goes.
Oh, and so we'll get a video of this pendulum trick, so guys
for sure
listening can see it. But it's rad. You can there's no limit to how you can command your energy to do what you need to do. So you absolutely do have the ability to heal your own body if you actually put your mind to it.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yep.
Thank you, Shannon.
Oh, this is so fun.
Yeah. No, appreciate it. It's been good to talk about.
Yeah, it has been fun. I'm looking forward to what's to come too. So.
Me
sure.
too. Absolutely. So of course I'll have some book recommendations, obviously, for available and questions that we need to follow up on. It's amazing. I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Clinically Pressed. Go to clinicallypressed.com for full show notes and links to everything that we covered in this episode. While you're there, you'll have full access to all our episodes, insights, and shorts. You can find Clinically Pressed on YouTube or any podcast outlet that you use. If you could give us a rating, thumbs up, or a review on how we're doing, we would greatly appreciate it and heard it helps out quite a bit. To get more free content delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for the Total Athletic Therapy newsletter at totalathletictherapy.com or clinicallypressed.com. You'll get direct links to all the new Clinically Pressed episodes, reviews on some of the latest research in health and performance, and links to related podcasts and other items meant to help you make the complicated simple and optimize performance. Thank you for listening, and see you next episode.